Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Rebecca Lubas. I'm the Dean of Libraries here, and we have a wonderful panel with some women leaders in the Inland Empire. So I'm very excited to share this with you. So our panelists have very illustrious resumes. So bear with me while I speak to those wonderful resumes. So our first panelist today is Anita Scott, who is the city manager for the city of Pomona, a city with an operating budget of $462 million. As city manager, she serves as the chief administrative officer of the city and is directly responsible to the mayor and the city council for the efficient and effective administration and daily operation of city functions. Prior to this role, Ms. Scott served as assistant city manager, where she oversaw the development services and public works departments. In her earlier capacity as director of development service, she managed the activities and operations of multiple divisions, including building safety, planning, and code enforcement. Additionally, she supervised 3 commissions: planning, cultural arts, and historic preservation. She has over 20 years experience working at the local, state, and federal levels of government, leading teams and communities in transformative work, development, and regulatory issues. Her work extended across areas all over Los Angeles County and the Inland Empire. Prior to joining the Pomona team in 2018, she served as legislative deputy for the Los Angeles County Supervisor Gloria Molina, and as a supervising regional planner for the LA County Department of Regional Planning. Her leadership style is collaborative, inclusive, innovative, and resourceful. Despite the conflicts often inherent in the development review and land use, Ms. Scott prides herself on helping people cut through red tape and find rational and reasonable solutions. We could all use more of that these days. Ms. Scott holds a bachelor's degree in political science from CSUSB, a master's degree in planning from the University of Southern California, and a doctorate degree in organizational change and leadership, also from USC. Ms. Scott is a native of Southern California and has dedicated her career to serving the public and helping community collectively shape their living environment. So, our second wonderful panelist is Diana Alexander, who's been San Bernardino County's Assistant Executive Officer since 2020. She works with the CEO and with the Board of Supervisors of San Bernardino County to accomplish whatever the county needs. Ms. Alexander is also the Human Services Welfare Director, and as such, she has operational oversight for the Human Services group of 6 county departments, including Aging and Adult Services, Child Support, First 5, In-Home Supportive Services and Public Guardian, Preschool Services, and Transitional Assistance and Veterans Affairs. Ms. Alexander also oversees the ongoing countywide vision work the county committed to in 2010. In this work, she partners with all county departments and multiple community stakeholders in providing extremely vital services to county residents while helping to achieve the countywide vision for all. Under the vision banner, she also oversees the equity work that the county committed to in 2020 as part of the Board of Supervisors resolution declaring that racism is a public health crisis. Ms. Alexander began her career with San Bernardino County in 1993. Prior to her appointment as so I said 2003, right? Or no, I said 2013. That's what I really said, right? That's okay. That's how long my career stretches back forth to, if that's any comfort. So prior to her appointment, Ms. Alexander served as the Deputy Executive Officer of the Community Services Group, Director of the San Bernardino County Preschool Services Department, Assistant Director of the Transitional Assistance Department, and Chief Learning Officer over the county's Performance, Education, and Resource Centers. Ms. Alexander is a resident of San Bernardino County and holds a bachelor's and master's degree in public administration, both from Cal State San Bernardino. So a lot of talent and a lot of coyote pride here. So my last very pleasant duty this morning is to introduce our moderator. our very own Stella Chu, who is professor and department chair in the management department of the Jack H. Brown College of Business and Public Administration, CSU San Bernardino. She earned her PhD in International Business and Strategic Management from Rutgers Business School, Rutgers University in 2010. Dr. Chu's research focuses on international business strategy, technology and innovation management, and strategic alliance in multinational corporations with a particular focus on emerging markets, especially within the pharmaceutical and information and communication technology industries. Her scholarly contributions are widely recognized and publications in numerous prestigious journals. Dr. Chu is a member of multiple academic organizations, including Academy of International Business, the Society of Strategic Management, and the Academy of Management. She was honored as a finalist in the 2015 Best Paper Award and 2011 Best Dissertation Award in the IM division of the Academy of Management. So, a lot of talent and a lot of power in this room. So I will hand it over to Dr. Chu to moderate our panel.
Thank you very much, Dean Lupas. It's a great honor for me to serve as the whatever you call it, moderator or coordinator for this discussion. Yeah, I didn't realize there are so many people showing up today, even with no food. By the way, I mean, that's the highlight here. And have two great panelists here to join us for a discussion. It's not only their show, it's also, you know, it's everybody's discussion. And by the way, they are I'm the third one being presented here, but they are the leading characters. I'm the best supporting actress here. All right, so things we already know, a lot of stories about these two panelists. I don't know if you would like to share anything else about your trajectory in the public sectors.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much. Really a pleasure to be back on campus. It's been too long, so really happy to be back on campus and be able to talk with all of you. And thank you for your time and joining us this afternoon. Just a little bit, I think, more about my trajectory and how I kind of went full circle. So I kind of started in public policy. I started here with a political science degree. I actually started with a communications degree. Thought I was going to be a news broadcaster. That's right, out of high school. That's what I was going to do. I worked on my first political campaign and really realized my passion was for public service and that realm. So changed to political science, kept the communications as a minor, and then worked in that arena for a long time. And kind of that policy area, realized I wanted to be an expert in something in a technical area. So ventured towards planning, got my degree in planning, worked for really 10 years in that sector and from the ground up, working at the public counter, processing permits, all of that, and then kind of came back, always knowing that I wanted to come back to public policy, and then eventually worked my way up through administration and management, and kind of came back full circle, and now as leading the organization in public policy. So that's kind of my trajectory, but really just rooted in public service. It comes from my upbringing and family life, and my dad was a firefighter. My mother was in secretary for the San Bernardino Unified School District for 30 years, almost 40 years. So really kind of rooted in that public service, and that's what I have a passion for, and that's kind of what's driven my trajectory in wanting to be where ultimately I am today.
Well, mine is completely different. I had no clue about public service at all. When I left high school, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. I was a biology major, went off to college, and my mom made the fatal mistake of telling me what not to do, and that was don't fall in love and get married. I fell in love, I got married, I became a college dropout. And so then I had children. And then one day when they were in elementary school, a friend called me and said, while you're figuring out what you want to do when you grow up, why don't you come and work for the county? And I just happened at that time to be living in San Bernardino because I'm actually from Georgia. Georgia Pike is how we say it back there. So I actually started working for the county of San Bernardino in an entry-level job as an eligibility worker. And once I got there, I thought, well, this is a play job until I get the real job, but it turned into a career. So I just started striving for excellence from the beginning, and I moved from eligibility into training and development and moved up the ranks until I became the Chief Learning Officer for the county, which does all training development for employees, strategic planning with the Board of Supervisors, a lot of work with the CEO on any kind of countywide initiative. So I got to do a whole lot of things in that position. And then I transitioned to a promotion to Assistant Director of Welfare Department, Transitional Assistance. From there to Head Start, running all the Head Starts. And mind you, and we'll probably get into this later, it's not like I had expertise in any of these areas. What I ended up having expertise was in how to treat people, how to lead, and how to manage. And so I ended up in these positions where I did not know anything about the programs, but I learned quickly and was able to manage. So I ran all the Head Starts, state preschools for our county for about 5 years. And then a deputy executive officer position came open, which was with the community services group, where I was overseeing registrar of voters and museums and agriculture weights and measures and this whole host of libraries and just a whole host of departments. And from there, my former boss became the CEO of the county. And the day he became the CEO, he said to me, "Dinah, I'm promoting you to assistant CEO." And that's the position that I have now.
Thank you very much. It sounds like you start from quite different, the starting point are quite different, but you end up in a very successful career. So how we organize this panel is I prepare a list of questions. I'm going to ask them to share their experience and insights about those questions. And then the last 15 to 20 minutes, I'll open it to the audience and see if they have any questions for you guys. So I'll start. I hold the mic. No complaint. All right. So the first question. So we start from the difficult one. What are some of the challenges of leadership and management in public sector environment?
I think some of the challenges when leadership and managing in the public sector are the outward appearance of what is projecting what's happening to the public, ensuring that we're being transparent, but also maintaining the operation of the organization. So, and everybody wants an opinion. So it's public sector, and is right. It's our constitutional right to be part of our government, to be involved. But that's all, and to facilitate that is priority and key, but also then to move things forward through that system and keep things operating and moving forward can be a challenge. So how do you move that policy forward while giving everybody a chance to weigh in, give an opportunity to be involved, but still keep projects going, stay on budget, stay within time, and be able to deliver. And then being able to, that's, I think, one aspect. And I think number two would be managing, particularly in my case, and I know certainly in San Bernardino County, managing the electeds. We work within a government I have 7 members of my council, 7 different bosses, 7 different opinions on matters that not always agree. And so it's being able to manage moving, again, projects forward with the different opinions, different perspectives, different priorities. One may want to work on roads, another one may want to prioritize parks. And that's my job, is to be able to find a balance of what indeed that is going to be, with consensus, find consensus, and then also match that energy with what the community needs and the community is expressing that they need in that moment. So I think that's one of the primary challenges foundational to the job that I do on a day-to-day level. There's a lot of intricacies involved, but fundamentally that's one of the biggest challenges, and having to navigate that constantly. And it's every day, because every day there's a new challenge, whether it's in the city of Pomona, whether it's street vendors, whether it's housing, rent stabilization, acquiring new parkland. It's, you name it. There's everybody. There's a topic. There's a issue that needs to be resolved, and it's a priority to someone at any certain given point in time. And so being able to manage, take those priorities and be able to make something happen of it instead of being stalled. A lot of that can happen a lot. You do think that something never happens because you just can't decide. The organization can't decide on how to move forward because you can't get consensus on something, so nothing happens. Or you move too fast on something and don't give the proper opportunity and get buy-in and input, and so then something fails as well. So I think that was as primarily one of those foundational challenges that I see in the public sector.
I would agree. We have the same challenges, but I'll just add that because we are a public institution and we are funded by taxpayer dollars, even though I also have 5 bosses, 5 elected board members, and then the CEO, and we have other elected officials, the number one client and boss are the people of the county of San Bernardino. And so transparency in everything that we do, making sure that we hold ourselves accountable in how we spend taxpayer dollars, holding board meetings for the public to come in and yell and scream at us about anything they feel we are or are not doing right, and also support and applaud when they agree with what we're doing. The county as an entity basically governs the unincorporated areas, but because San Bernardino County is so huge, I mean, we have about a $10 billion budget. So because we're so huge and we're different from other counties in a lot of other states, in fact, with our geography being so big, and we partner with all of the cities and so many organizations, we don't function always like a typical county who's just governing the unincorporated areas. So it means a lot of things come to our door. When monies come in, we do partner with city partners and community partners in how to spend those funds, how to make sure everything is being done equitably. And so that is an issue. But the other issue, I think, that's not only for public institutions, but all institutions, is staffing, especially since COVID. The staffing issues are always big. Trying to get people to come in and do the jobs that need to be done and to stay. Competition with private, that's another big issue that we run into if private is paying more than we can pay based on our taxpayer-funded resources. So there's quite a few challenges, and we like to call them opportunities because with each challenge, it's an opportunity to try and overcome it and to do something different. But yeah, there's a lot of competing priorities, whether it's developers, whether it's elected officials, whether it's community-based organizations, nonprofits, faith-based organizations. Everyone wants a piece of the pie. And when they hear we have a $10 billion budget, they assume that means we got a lot of money we can share. But the majority of that budget is restricted funds, meaning they can only be spent on certain things. And then there's some discretionary money that we have a little more leeway with. So getting people to understand who we are. And then the last thing I would say is telling our story, especially being San Bernardino County public institution, because a lot of the stories are about LA and Orange County and Riverside. And here we are doing amazing work all the time. I mean, San Bernardino County is not what most people think it is. We do amazing work, amazing collaborations, and we're constantly trying to figure out how do we get our story out there so people know who we are, what we do, and that will also attract more people who will want to come work for us.
All right, thank you very much, two of you. You know, just by listening what, your story you shared, I feel the pressure already. It's very difficult, it's very challenging, but you have done a great job. So what do you think the best way, based on your experience, to position oneself for professional advancement in public sector or public institutions? So especially, I think those are valuable kind of like insights for us, like the early career or mid-career, like some of our to-be graduate students, or, like they're professionals, but they are in early or mid-career stage.
I'll tell you the way that I did it. When I first started, and I knew I didn't necessarily want to come and get a county job, and I was trying to understand what did that mean and what is public sector work. The first thing I did was figure out if I were going to stay here for a while, what would I want to do? And so I started researching the jobs that were available and finding out what really aligned with me. And part of that means getting to know you before you even consider how do you move up within the organization. What is it that really resonates with you? I mean, what is it that brings you joy when it comes to work? Because there's nothing worse than a job that doesn't. So I started looking and seeing what I wanted to do, found out. Once I found that out and looked at all of the requirements and figured out what do I need to do to meet those requirements, then I started putting myself out there so that the people who had those positions could see who Diana Alexander was. But one of the things that helped me the most was taking advantage of mentoring. I found out quickly who were the movers and the shakers, who were the people who had the knowledge and had the heart that would want to mentor me so that I could learn how to be the best me for the jobs that I wanted to get. And not only did I get mentored, I began to mentor others. And so that made a huge difference. When it came time to volunteer for projects, committees, I did that. And I didn't do it just from trying to gain a position, but from trying to learn and grow. Because so often you are doing a great job, but you're in the cubicle, in the back, in the dark, and nobody sees the great work that you're doing. So being able to be on a committee, some kind of a mentoring assignment, it gives you an audience, it gives you a platform so that people can see who you are and consider you for a position, for a promotion, because otherwise they don't see you. So I did a lot of those kinds of things, joining the County Women's Network, the African American Employees Association, helping out with his Hispanic Employees Association, so that I could do things that I wouldn't necessarily be assigned to in my job, but I was able to do in these other positions. So like with County Women's Network, I became the director of mentoring, and I was mentoring female executives who were way higher level than me. But that meant they got to see how Diana manages things and get to know me. So when I finally did start putting in for promotion opportunities, they already knew me and already saw my abilities. So mentoring is one of the things that helped me the most, but really understanding who I am and what it is that I wanted and striving for excellence in whatever I did is what opened so many doors for me.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, I completely agree. I think mentorship is a huge component and a very valuable asset. Part of my dissertation was on the social cognitive effect of women in leadership positions. And what my own research had found is that there is a connection between having someone, whether it's an informal mentor, formal mentor, but someone in your corner that you can confide in, bounce ideas off of, talk to about promotions or opportunities, really helps give you a leg up in moving faster through that career trajectory. Through the qualitative research that I had done shows that those that did have those formal or informal mentors gave them the cognitive ability to know I can do it, and I will take that step sooner than had I not had that person in my ear saying I could do it. And I think in general, research in public administration and leadership in general shows that women typically take longer to take the next step because they wait until we're overqualified versus men who may take the leap sooner, even if they're underqualified. And so I think that is also something to remember in trying to pursue leadership positions, to not be afraid to take the next step, put yourself out there, take the opportunities to try something new outside of your comfort zone of what you may be doing in your day-to-day career. Something that I love about the public sector in general, whether it's the county, and I come from LA County, county government and LA County, and even within my own organization, government in general, there are so many niches within the organization, some that you may not even be aware of. So I love the comment about finding joy and finding something that brings you joy. Something in my own hiring practices that I tell managers is look for someone that has passion. I can teach you the technical skills. I can teach process. I cannot teach you to care. And that translates to your career trajectory and leadership potential. If you find something that you enjoy doing, whether it's just the general area, whether it's planning or it's education or the general niche. There are within the sector, there are so many different aspects of that kind of idea of what that you can try. Whether if you want to, my own background with planning, if you want to be a planner that works on parks, transportation, health equity, environmental justice. Within the planning world, all of those things exist, and that happens within every different segment of government. So I would highly recommend in that journey of leadership, you are going to be the most successful in your careers and pursuing leadership positions if you're doing something that you enjoy doing that fulfills your desire for public service and doing good. So that I would also say, and looking towards the next step is in government. The other benefit of public sector is that every job has a job description, and those are public and they are publicly available. The pay, salary, and schedule is publicly available for all government employees. So peruse the system. Look at what is offered out there. And if you see a job, I'm interested in children's programming, community services. Let me go look in those areas. Look at jobs that are out there. See what the qualifications are. I did that in my own career. I knew I wanted to be a manager someday, and one of the hardest pieces of being a manager is getting the ability to manage people. Making that jump is the hardest jump that you will have in your career. Once you pass management, first level management, going up from there there may be challenges, but it will not be as hard as the first transition to your first level management position. And getting that experience is tough. So looking for those opportunities to get experience, whether you're managing interns, you're managing, one or two other people, getting that first level line of experience managing is your key to also moving ahead in leadership. And so look at those positions, and if there's something that you see that you want to potentially be, even if it's maybe not that exact position, but I see that position needs experience in this area, go and pursue experience in that area. So that way, when positions open up that you want to apply for, you're ready. You're prepared. And so luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And so you need to prepare yourself to be able to be, when that position comes available, and you may not even know it, but in that genre, that area of expertise that you're interested in, you've prepared yourself. So when there's an opportunity, you're ready. And then you are able to stand out as being someone that has demonstrated experience, meets the requirements, and is ready to go and hit the ground running. And then having that passion combined with the passion, I may not know all of the specifics of that particular program, but if you can demonstrate that you have leadership skills, you have passion, you can learn, we can teach you that thing. We can teach you those specifics.
Thank you both. Yeah, what I can hear is, like for your career, it's important to find the mentors, the mentorship, and also step out of the comfort zone and take the challenges and capture the opportunities, right? So my next question is like a one step forward, for the earlier mid-career is important to just, like what you just mentioned, but what are some of the qualities you believe make for a good, successful public leader? Maybe on you or someone, maybe your role models.
So what are the qualities for a successful public leader?
Yes.
I think every leader is a little bit different, but I think, and it really, what is your own leadership philosophy? I tend to have a more servant leader philosophy, transformational leadership philosophy. So wanting to move things forward. And I think as in my introduction, I really also focus on creating reasonable approaches and trying to find a middle ground that we can move forward with. So I think some key qualities are, listening, being able to truly listen and with understanding, particularly in the public sector, as in recent years, since COVID, more and more advocacy groups have come forward. There's more involvement and skepticism with public government and in the public sector. And so being able to truly listen and understand the perspective of what people are bringing to you, and putting aside your own positionality, your own understanding of things, and being able to truly listen, I think is a really critical skill in today's public administration world. Being able to also come from a perspective of, let's ask the community, our leaders, what is our true problem, as opposed to, as a public administration leader, this is what I think the problem is, and here's your solution. We've seen that that's not the model that works in today's public leadership environment. And so really, and that comes from an ability to listen and to translate, what you're hearing into solutions that are then offered and discussed and then agreed upon. So I think also having compassion and being able to have empathy and understanding what people's perspectives are coming from. And I think that really helps with being able to find that common ground. If you can understand where someone's coming from, you, I think, are more able to find a solution that can move two diverging opinions forward, and find a middle ground that moves forward. So I think those are two really important skills in today's modern public administration leadership era that are important for leaders.
Well, I think when you think about public administration, the majority of the people that we serve are folks who are disparaged. There are people who are either in poverty, they're in need. In order to be a good leader and to have your folks be good people behind you, you really need to have humility. We need to have empathy. Because for me, but for the grace of God, there go I, right? I mean, we're serving people who are coming to us sometimes because this is their last resort. They don't have anywhere else to go. They have nothing else they can do. They need the cash. They need the food assistance. They need medical help. They need housing because they're homeless. They need mental health, behavioral health interventions. There's a lot of needy people, especially in this big old county, who come to us. And as leaders, if we don't have empathy and compassion and humility, then this is not the career. It's not the career for people who don't have that. And we need to be able to teach that to our staff, because our staff are the ones who are going to answer that phone or be across the desk. And we are all human beings, and we know how we each want to be treated. We want to be treated with dignity and respect. So public service leaders, like everywhere else, need to be people who have the qualities of how to treat everyone, no matter what their situation is, with dignity and respect. When you think about the qualities of a public service leader, you should just think about, how do you want people to treat you? Whether you're calling about your bill, whether you're checking out at the grocery store, wherever you are, you know what makes you feel good about the way that you're treated. Leaders ought to be like that, and not just for the public, but for their staff. I always say we're customers to each other. It's not just the customer and the client base, but it's my staff that I'm serving on a daily basis. My staff needs to feel like the environment in which they work is one that's welcoming and warm, and one where they receive the resources they're supposed to get, and where they get the opportunities they need to learn to do the job and be able to meet the vision, the goals, the objectives, the mission. And if I'm not doing that internally, I'm probably not treating my customer like that either. So those are qualities that I think we learned from our parents, most of us at least, from kindergarten on, is how to be fair, how to listen, how to be flexible, how to have empathy and compassion. Those are the qualities that we need in leaders, the same qualities we need in human beings, period. But if we could bring more of that into leadership, then it would make a complete difference in the way that we are able to fulfill our mission and our goals as leaders in public sector work.
If I can, I just want to also mention, I completely agree with everything that's been said. I think another aspect, though, is of a quality for a leader, particularly again in the climate, political climate that we have and social climate that we have, with so much apprehension about public sector, is the ability to also say no. Because we want to listen, we want to be compassionate, but everybody cannot get a yes. And that's very difficult. There's a lot of political pressure. We deal with political elected officials. And with that comes a lot of political pressure to say yes to everything. And a big characteristic, important characteristic for leadership is finding the balance to be able to say no sometimes. And that's difficult because you also have to be able to manage the relationships to, these are your bosses. And sometimes you have to make the difficult choice to say, we cannot do that, or that is not within the confines of the law, or that would be unethical, or how about we do this instead of this? So being able to find that balance of when to say no, when to pivot, when to find an opportunity to shift, to still get them maybe what they want, but in a different way that is within the confines of the organization and the law.
To add to that, then flexibility and adaptability, because in the public sector, we are overseen by federal, state, and local government, basically, and things change. We have an election coming. Depending on the outcome of that election, it could impact our budget completely. And so that means we got to be able to pivot. You always got to be able to be flexible, and you have to be the kind of person who understands your staff enough to know how to tell them when, yeah, I said we're going to go in direction A, but now we're going to go in direction Z. And we don't really have a choice in that, but let's just come together and work it out and do what we need to do. So there's a lot of flexibility and adaptability that you have to have as qualities in order to be a leader in public sector, because the sands are shifting. They shift, and you got to be able to stand in the midst of that shift.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Diana. So that is very true. Research shows that, women leaders, they're more intent to practice the collaborative leadership, which is a different from the typical autocratic or transactional, which is top down. What I say you have to follow. It's more sympathy and more impassion, and what you said, taking more voices and the needs from the communities. But at the same time, it's also challenging to people think women leaders are more intent to say yes to some kind of request, but you have to balance both, right? So for the next question is a little bit another difficult one. How do you address conflicts in the workplace? So because, you're leaders.
Well, to me, it all begins with building relationships with staff in the beginning. So for me, like when I used to be a trainer, and we would bring in new workers, and they knew if they didn't pass those courses, they were losing their job. And the first thing I would tell them is that we're here to help you get the resources you need. We're here to support you. We're here for tutoring. We're here for everything. But we can only do what we can do. You're going to have to do the rest. And we will work with you through giving you feedback along the way. You will never be surprised by anything. So if at the end of the day, I end up having to say, I'm sorry, but you no longer have this job, it should not be a surprise, because I have been transparent all along the way. If there's progressive discipline that's needed, it's being done all along the way. Now, people may get angry anyway, but nobody can say that they didn't know that we were going down this path. I've disciplined people and terminated people who I cried with them, they cried with me. And it wasn't that they were angry with me, because I made sure that I let them know, these are the requirements, this is what is expected, here are the timelines for those expectations, here is how we're supporting you with the resources and the things that you need in order to meet that, and here's the consequences if you don't. Very upfront, and then just documenting, having regular ongoing feedback meetings with them, mentoring them, trying to hold their hand when I can, and knowing when it's time to say no and let it go. Those are the things for me that came for the disciplinary process. And I've used that, and I have almost 32 years. I've used that throughout my career, And it's been very rare that I've had any ugly kinds of disciplinary process that I've had to deal with. Not that I haven't had some, there's been a couple in there. But for the most part, when you treat people and you're transparent and you let them know exactly what's expected, then you follow them through the course of how to meet those expectations, then folks kind of know, it's like I said, it's not a surprise. They know that they're being disciplined for a reason. And we kind of go from there.
Thank you. And I'll talk about conflict in a slightly different way. In terms of, I think a healthy amount of conflict within the workplace is good in the aspect of when I hire, particularly an executive team, management team, I don't want people that are going to agree with me 100% of the time. I want them to have different opinions and express them. I think I am not an expert in every aspect of city organization. So I am not a water master that handles water department. I am not a HR professional that knows all of the CalPERS and retirement policies. I rely on those members to keep me informed and be subject matter experts within the department. And so when I am making decisions and policy direction and recommendations for the organization, I welcome a healthy debate and some conflict within the team, but it also has to be, they know who's making the decision. So understanding that within the confines of this room, if we're having a discussion within our executive team, it stays here. If there is difference of opinions, express them here. It ends here. And when you go out to your team and you give direction, the direction is coming from what I've decided. And so it's very clear. Do not take that conflict or that difference of opinions within your organization, within your departments, and express a difference of opinions. It's one city, one voice, and that's the route that we're taking. So I think to that aspect, there's a little bit of conflict is good and a difference of opinions, but also knowing when to ensuring that the team knows when that stops and one voice begins. So, and I think on the discipline side, I have joked sometimes that everything I've learned about managing adults, I've learned from my children. Adults can be children more than you realize. And so I think all the things that Diana said on that regard is, the progressive discipline, setting expectations is all true. But in public leadership and administration, do not be surprised. Things sometimes will remind you of a high school campus sometimes. And so, and that is just something that be prepared to deal with as a public administrator, and setting those clear goals and expectations will go a long way in having to address that in the long run.
And we work very closely with HR and the unions.
It's very true. So I think we can have another, coffee or something, talk about, kids and adults. So I have a long list of questions of another 36 questions, but I rather save my questions and leave it open to the audience. I'm pretty sure you have your own kind of curiosity about our panelists today. So I opened microphone. We have Zoomers.
Is there room for social workers in the space that you're in?
Cool.
Oh,
Social workers. Yeah. So at the city of programs as county does, but we certainly do. So right now, one of the jobs that my staff is doing is putting together a budget of how much we spend on homelessness. And it's probably about 25% of our budget, to be honest. So we have, and going to the question of what you're interested in, government has so many options. So we have a heart team through our Pomona Police Department that has a social worker embedded with our heart team that goes out to work with our homeless individuals and provide them resources. The city of Pomona has built and operates a homeless shelter, 400-bed homeless shelter that we partner with Volunteers of America. So we have a neighborhood services team that manages that. We also provide housing vouchers. So there's a kind of an aspect of social services there. And we also partner, we are part of a joint powers authority with Tri-City Mental Health that provides mental health services to the cities of Claremont, Laverne, and the city of Pomona. So there is definitely a niche for social services. We don't particularly hire social workers per se, but they are embedded throughout the organization in different capacities.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Oh, hi, I'm Terry McCoy. Nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. Okay, you both are so successful in what you've been doing, and it's a privilege to be here with you. But how do you deal with disappointment? Like when you have your goal, you know what you want, and then you hit this wall. Now, how do you get over that? What did you do, or have you had the situation where you have to dig yourself out and start again, to keep on your track of your trajectory?
Yes, disappointment, that is a big one. But let me start with this. I had a coworker who had tried to become a supervisor. She probably had interviewed about 12 or 13 times. And I'm one of those people who's always mentoring folks. And I tell her, you know what, if it's meant to be, it will happen. When the time is right, it will come. If it didn't come now, you don't want it, And I'm doing all this advice, right? Then it happened to me. And so I had been told I was being groomed for a particular position for some years. And I was looking forward to getting that position when my boss retired. And when my boss retired, rather than me getting poof the position, they didn't even open it up for competition or anything. It just went to someone else. And yes, that's how I was. I was so hurt. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, I felt like I've been betrayed. I'm so disappointed. She said that job was for me. And then I heard my own voice in my head saying, if it's for you and if it's meant to be, it will come to you. So it was like, Diana, are you going to listen to the advice you've been giving people for years? And I did. And that helped me get my head and my heart straight and realize, you know what? It's not the right timing. And it's so interesting when I let it go and I continued to pursue my goals without worrying about that. Everything I thought I needed to get then, I got later. In fact, the job I'm in now is the job that I thought I was going to get then. Everything worked out together for my good. And I recognize that sometimes we think we know our path, where our path is supposed to go in life, and we don't always know. And sometimes we think we've been cheated out of something, and we haven't necessarily been cheated. But if we take those moments of disappointment and try to turn them into a moment for learning, then it makes all the difference in the world. And it's not easy to do. It's hard. But I went to one of my mentors, and I remember her, I was complaining and almost crying, and she was saying, you just put on your big girl panties and go to work and do your job you have now. And so I got slapped in the face by my closest friends who kind of shaking me back into reality. But I think some of the greatest learning lessons for me in my life have been the disappointment, the times of disappointment. Because once I got my head and my heart together in alignment and figured out, just keep moving forward. If that wasn't for you, there's something else for you. And it was so wild because one job before I got this job, I ended up in a position with the person that I didn't know was going to become the CEO, which is what opened the door for me to become assistant CEO. And if I had gotten the job back sooner, it would not have worked like that. So we just sometimes have to stop and sit back and just realize that if we really believe that the path that flows before us is going to be the path that's best for us, then let it go. Cry, do whatever you need to do, laugh, talk, eat, whatever you do, but then just move forward. And it really makes a difference.
Just to add on briefly, I think in also moving forward, don't forget that it can also mean maybe it's time to look elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's time to find another opportunity. If one door has closed, you've done the work, I believe I was qualified, I'm being undervalued, I am not appreciated here, look somewhere else. Another beauty of public sector is there are a lot of public sector jobs. And so if one organization is not seeing that value in you, look for another. Now, if you find that you're looking at applying and not succeeding at that same level position in multiple organizations, also look at yourself and, is there something else I need to be doing to really be right for that position? But also don't be afraid. I think sometimes we're afraid to make the shift out because change is hard, especially if you've been in government, you've been in a position 5, 10 years within one organization. Leaving that organization can be a bit daunting, but don't be afraid to do that if you're not seeing the success that you're hoping for within that organization.
And I will say the person who had tried for interview to get a supervisor position 12 times, that's the exact advice we gave her. She left and went to, it wasn't even out of the organization, it was just a different office, a different unit, and was able to get her promotion because she was seen differently. And sometimes we're in a box and people see us a certain way, and we do have to move in order to really be seen for who we are.
And now we move to the Zoom part. We have some questions from,
Yes,
probably
so
we cannot cover all of them, but maybe
Yeah,
one or
this is
two.
probably the last question. The student writes, I like how the panelists talk about empathy as leaders and the political pressure that is involved. My question is, do they have a vision or a certain goal for the future of their city or county?
Oh, certainly. I think having a vision is also imperative for moving the organization forward, making sure that everyone is striving for the same vision, sharing that vision, vocalizing that. I've learned through my own team, I think it's also a difference in how one communicates that. I tend to be much more of a doer, less of a pontificator, and but some members of the team really like to have it written out, have it explained, and really visualized for them to be able to achieve it. So, so it is very important, I think, to have a vision in order to, and share it with your team. So that way everyone is moving in the same direction. Everyone's swimming the same direction and trying to achieve that same common goal. I think is very important for that organization. Otherwise, particularly like in government, because there are so many different departments, different areas that if you're not working towards that same goal, it can feel a bit chaotic. And why am I doing this work? It doesn't make sense. I'm just doing it because it's work, because that's what is in front of me. But if you can connect the staff to a purpose and what we're moving towards, it also does wonders for the organization and able to give staff a purpose of what they're working towards, which then makes people feel fulfilled, right? If you're working towards something, I feel like I'm making a difference, I'm making a change, I'm working towards something, it feels good to work. And people want to have that feeling and work in those environments. So having that vision is important, and sharing it with your organization.
For me, vision is so important. Vision is a picture of what it is you want to achieve when you finish doing all that hard work and effort to get there. And back in 2009, 2010, we had a new CEO who came into the county, and he said, I think we need a vision, not just for the organization, but for the county geographically. And I was chief learning officer at the time, and I had the privilege of being able to work on helping to facilitate meetings all over our great county, from city halls to colleges to surveys of high school students to retail. I mean, we brought in every aspect of our community in, and we did a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then we asked them to write a letter to 20 years into the future to say, what would the county of San Bernardino look like if we were able to, it to be the best place to live, work, play, and stay here. And we took all of that information and put it together, and out of that, we have the countywide vision that we have today, which looks at our diversity, our geography, all of our assets, all of our strengths, all of our weaknesses, and decided that what we really want to do is to achieve that vision, that picture of what is it going to be, kind of like that House Hunters International, where people on television are looking to see what's that perfect community that I want to live in, which has parks and walking trails and great malls and entertainment venues and good restaurants. All of that went into our countywide vision. So everything we do, we look back at that picture of the vision and say, is that helping us to achieve that? And every board agenda item has to have some link to our countywide vision. So everything we do is vision focused. And when we finished that vision, we went to all of the cities and they ceremonially signed on to support that vision. And we're still doing that today. And one of my jobs in the county is to promote the countywide vision. So vision to me is so important because it's like, if you want to lose weight, you put a picture up, what you want to look like, right? So that's your vision and you work towards that. And every time you get tired and you feel like I can't do it anymore, you look at that picture and it motivates you to keep going. And that's what this vision does for our county and our community. So when we talk about homelessness, if we want this to be the best place for people to live, work, play, and stay here, we got to do something about homelessness. We have to do something about mental health. We have to do something about, child support. And we changed the way we looked at things, like it's not a deadbeat dad anymore. It's a dad who needs help being able to support his family. That vision turned a corner for us in so many ways to help us understand how to get to a place where every citizen feels like they have an equal opportunity to have a good life in this county. And so vision is super important to us.
Thank you. Thank you. We're approaching the end of this discussion, but we have one last question and a very brief question, I hope.
Yes. Well, thank you both for just your inspirational stories. It's just really great to be able to listen to the two of you. Just that whole transformational and servant type leadership is something that resonates with myself. So I just wanted to ask a question. As women in leadership, I would imagine you have encountered this. So I would really love your insights. How do you handle situations where women in leadership exhibit passive aggressive or bullying behavior? And what strategies have you found effective in addressing these in leadership? How do you handle that? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, and that can happen regardless of gender, but particularly when it's right. I think there's a more of an expectation that when there's a woman in leadership, that your fellow women support, and that doesn't necessarily happen all the time. Just as any other individual, some you may not have supporters across the board. So I think it depends on the situation, but I think it's important to address it and try to provide opportunities to work. The most important, I think, aspect for me is to maintain a working relationship. I don't need to be friends with everyone that I work with, right? And keeping that boundary, I think, is very important, particularly in leadership and especially at the top executive leadership positions. When you're at entry level, and again, when you going back to my earlier comment, when you make that first transition from line staff supervisor to first level manager, the mentality has to change from being able to go out to lunches and being, gossiping and have, changes when you're now in charge of that staff. And the higher you go, the more that has to change. If you've heard that expression, it can be lonely at the top. It certainly can be, and for a reason. I mean, you are the top of an organization or a department, a large group of people that you have to manage and keep a boundary between professional and personal. And so for me, going back to your question about how do you manage particularly a woman that is being passive aggressive, for me, primarily it's, can we maintain a working relationship? If we can't, that's a problem. So being able to address that, and it's not as easy as we're going to ignore it. I see what you're doing. You're coming late to these meetings, or you're saying comments behind the back that come back to me. Those things do happen. I think it's important to address it up front where you can, of understanding this is our working relationship. Are we going to be able to maintain that? And finding a way to work through that. And if we can't, then there needs to be some discussion about moving that person along, because you have to have the right people on the bus in order to run an effective organization. And if there are people that are being passive aggressive and undermining you, that is, don't water the weeds, water the flowers. That person has to find a way to go.
I love that. Don't water the weeds, water the flowers. Oh man, we don't have time for my answer. Because I've had, most of my career I've been blessed without that, but I have had a couple of women who, one passive aggressive, one just aggressive. And the aggressive one was my boss. And when I talked about disappointments being one of the greatest lessons, I think that kind of thing, some of the things that are so rough that we don't want to deal with, that makes people not even want to be a supervisor or manager or anything, because you got to deal with people and personnel, that some of those are the greatest lessons I've experienced in my life. And I had a passive aggressive person who would just do little irritating things or set me up in different ways. And I remember even little stupid things, like I'd come into work and say, "Good morning," and they would frown up and turn away. And I remember once I was just going on and on to my husband about, "I can't believe this woman, why she treat me like this. I don't deserve this. I have earned my reputation, da, 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 da." You know, I'm going on. And the response that I got back was, and it wasn't from him, I won't go all spiritual on y'all, but the response I got back was, "Well, do you say good morning because that's who you are, or because the response you're going to get?" And it slapped me so hard in the face, because I was like, oh my gosh. But it changed my whole perspective. So when I would go in and I'd say, "Good morning," and she would act like that, it didn't bother me anymore. It was like a miracle. I didn't even care. And I would go, instead of going throughout the rest of my day talking to everybody in Misery Loves Company, "Do you know how she did me? You know how she treated me?" I just would go, oh my gosh. And then I learned to apply that in so many ways. I got flipped off on the freeway and I yelled out, "You're welcome." Because they could have flipped off a person with a gun who's going to chase them and ram their car, but I was the chosen one. And so they didn't get killed that day because it was me. So I learned how to change my perspective and kind of turn things around for my good, rather than allowing people to have control over me. And as long as that passive aggressiveness didn't impact my paycheck, my ability to do my job, my ability to move up, then I didn't worry about it. But if it was going to impact that, then I went to those people who had mentored me, and I made sure I had mentors above me too, people who fell in love with me. Then I went to those folks and said, "This is what's happening, and it needs to stop," to get help to stop it. Now, I also would try to work with the person. That's the first thing you do, right? You try to work with the person, try to be transparent, try to talk to them and say, "Hey, I see this. Can we just, and sometimes that works. But when it doesn't work, then you do whatever else you need to do in order to deal with it, manage it. But first, managing your own emotions, your own EQ. You learn how to manage your own emotions and not let those words or those little actions bother you. And then people see how you're acting, and that person's passive aggressiveness becomes magnified, and the whole world can see it, and then they get shut down.
Thank you so much. It's so great panel discussion for today, and it's too short. I wish we have another 3 hours, but I guess they're going to get their parking tickets very soon. So yeah, that will end our session today, and very successful. And if I guess they can hang on for another maybe 5-10 minutes. Hopefully I'll back them for not giving you tickets. But thank you so much for spending the time with our panelists today. And I wish you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.